Imagine driving down the road and the steering wheel comes off in your hands. Problem? Yes. This can happen to you if you happen to own a 2020 through 2021 Ford Super Duty. They're recalling 115,000 of these trucks, and they're the leader in trucks, also leader in recalls, but this may not be Ford's problem. This is actually a supplier who made a change and didn't tell Ford about it.
No!
Kind of a crazy story. So the recall is going to impact these trucks. Recall notice on NHTSA.gov, and they're going to send out a recall for F250s, 350s, and 450s. And the steering wheel upper shaft may detach from the steering column, and that can result in loss of steering. Yeah, you think? Steering wheel in your hands, duh, be a problem. So they're going to send the letters out, they're going to fix this issue. So what happened here? So here I highlighted here. They looked at the history of the upper shaft design, and they realized that the part history shows a single primary staking for anti-pull-apart force. I'll explain this more in English in a minute. Was utilized from the start of 2020 model year until February 2021, when a second staking was added to the upper shaft hard slider design. Okay, so here's what happens. This is the part in blue. This is the part where the steering wheel attaches on the end. So you take the steering wheel, you put it in the assembly process. Staking is the process where you have a piece of metal in there that is deformed, and that way it creates a good bond. And so they have a pull apart process. They kind of call Bubba, the body shop, and say, Bubba, grab the steering wheel and try to pull it apart. Okay, no, they actually have a test, and they do this different test to make sure they can't pull it apart. But they used one piece of a primary staking, so like one piece of metal in there. They put it in there, and they tried to pull it apart. Well, the supplier put it in there, pulled it apart. They found it could be pulled apart a little bit more easily. So they made a change and said, we're going to use two pieces of metal in this process, stick it in there, that way it holds much more strong. There's no problems. They didn't tell Ford that according to this chronology report of the recall. So they worked with the supplier, and they did some tests, worked with the supplier, and they realized that the supplier process and maintenance records, they determined the population of trucks that had been built at Kentucky Truck Plant prior to October 1st, 2020, were the ones that the supplier made a change to this part process, had shipped that to Ford, Ford put it in the trucks, and they didn't know it. So this happens all the time to Ford. Ford gets, I don't know why communication with the suppliers to Ford happens to them. So they reviewed the problem. They figured out that the supplier made a change, didn't tell Ford about it. Ford's like, great, we got to recall these trucks now, fix the problem in dealerships, put more staking parts in there, probably the two staking parts, and make these steering wheels stick so they don't get loose, don't come off your hands, because that, driving on the road, steering wheel in your hand, is not a good thing.